6 years of this game, over 100 exotic weapons. Many of these needed a new source, which brings us to the Monument to Lost Light Kiosk, allowing us to acquire unobtainable exotic weapons, as well as some past legendaries, for a price, of course. All of these will require some sort of glimmer and upgrade materials, with some others requiring exotic ciphers and spoils of conquest, due to the type of exotic they are, i.e. a raid exotic. Now, what is always a big question for newer or returning players, what should I prioritize getting, or what is best here? This is what I'll try to go over now. But firstly, these choices are also my opinions, personal preferences and experiences, and yes, while some may very obviously be more dominant than others, that does not mean everyone will be in agreement. Choosing what to prioritize will rely heavily on the kind of player you are, what you like to use, your playstyle, and the kind of content you are engaging with. While not directly related to you as the player, choosing an exotic may also vary depending on the current meta and what is potent at the moment. Now, I'll start with PvE for both exotics and legendaries, then PvP second, with timestamps placed for each changeover. My choices will be based on where your choice actually matters, so Master and GM content, raids, and dungeons for PvE, then comp trials, and I guess I am banner for PvP. When thinking of the best PvE stuff that does very well even in hard content and basically anything, I think of Quicksilver Storm, Witherhoard, Tiku's Divination, Le Monarch, Aga's Scepter, and I'll also fit Outbreak Perfected in there as well towards the bottom of this top tier. Since it already does major minor damage due to its primary exotic state, Quicksilver Storm is already a beast. One of the best, if not the best, primary in the game right now. Shoots like a primary, got some extra oomph with its mini missiles, and gets a nade launcher that hits like a truck. Seriously, you hit something like 47k per nade thanks to previous buffs. It's a literal heavy weapon. It's also a good option for Strand users since its catalyst does make it deal Strand and create a tangle on a grenade kill, with a cooldown of course. This is a very solid option and good for basically anything, mowing down adds or even damage on yellow bars. The Blight Shooter itself, Witherhoard, has always been a solid option wherever you are. Damage over time capabilities is so valuable, even more so when you can switch weapons to a big boy heavy that can pack even more of a punch. You do have Anarch here as well, which is similar, but it got nerfed pretty heavily a while back, so this thing to me is better. It's a special, got more ammo, an auto-loading catalyst with increased handling, and again, you can switch to a more powerful heavy for big damage. A very good choice for crowd control and burst damage. Chuck a Blight and switch weapons, solid choice. Tiku's has never not been good. Being able to just spam hipfire shots that track to prime targets, then cause massive explosions on a group of enemies, is so satisfying and potent. Its catalysts can even help it with single target damage. This is a great option for higher end content when enemies are tanky and hit hard. Just need to peek shoot to prime, then explode, and rinse and repeat. It's fun and an amazing weapon all around. All the exotic bows are just great options, aren't they? Which leads me into the next bow. Damn, that's smart. Le Monarch, which became even better in PvE last year due to it gaining intrinsic overload capabilities, making it even better in champion content. Being able to poison a group of enemies is very helpful when needing to be careful, but having Unrelenting on its catalyst can be a lifesaver when out in the open, since it's a good crowd control option. A very good and snappy choice for high-end content, but I do personally like Tiku's better for the massive explosion potential. Next is Aga's Scepter, another weapon that has always been a top option since it has the ability to slow and freeze targets around a final blow. This instantly makes it such a good option since freezing a target can literally be a get out of jail free card or an easy amount of burst damage. On top of that, its overcharged state overflows the mag, buffs damage, and allows you to slow and freeze on hit, allowing for a good amount of sustained damage as long as your super energy remains and the weapon is out. A very solid choice for lots of content, even if you're not on a stasis subclass. Lastly, I want to fit Outbreak in here due to how good it remains to this day, also benefiting from a few buffs recently. It is a nanite machine. Rapid hits, precision kills, more damage to enemies swarming with nanites, and a catalyst that increases nanite damage and generates more even when a swarmed enemy dies. Nanites. While it's not the greatest crowd control option when revving up, when nanites start to form, it gets to work, and that work is strong. Plus, it's super fun and satisfying to use, and it sounds great. Love it. Getting a headshot for that fast outlaw reload is also so satisfying. It's even been used for boss DPS before in raids due to the sheer amount of nanites that are created, and the extra damage you can get from those nanites. A very good option all around, but it does have to contend with more recent newcomers. Anyway, these are my picks for a top tier selection, but what you get will still depend on what you like. Next up are great options all around, but haven't quite reached that peak state due to reasons like the current meta, or there are other more solid options, like those named above. These include Izanagi's Burden, Sleeper Simulant, Legend of Acreus, Anarchy, and I'll also chuck in this season's exotic Centrifuge for the future since it will enter the kiosk at the start of next season. Izanagi's Burden could have been in the higher tier if it wasn't for Sniper still being a bit weak. Its honed edge shot being unaffected by the recent buffs and reload mods not affecting its honed edge reload. However, that isn't to say it's a great option for burst DPS as well as hot swapping to basically any heavy for more damage. Its big times 4 shot takes a chunk out of, if not destroys mages, and puts a dent in higher enemies. I've been pairing it with a rocket and even a linear recently, and I'm hitting above 4 mil on raid bosses, so I can safely say it's a solid choice. But again, there are other damage over time effects like Witherhoard, which auto-load and can let you output your power damage more, so it depends on your playstyle there. Sleeper is good for sustained damage scenarios, easier when the enemy isn't moving, but really packs a punch. Sleeper has seen countless damage buffs over time, but can still get beaten out by legendary counterparts. But that doesn't mean it isn't a beast, because it is. With a catalyst that gives more ammo and speeds up charge time, a true heavy hitter to this day that is so fun to use, and can really disintegrate and overpenetrate enemies. I talked about Acreus previously, but its max range and reserves buff have made it even better. It's always been good, but requires you to get up close and personal, something not always possible or very risky in some cases. But when you can, wow, everything just evaporates, especially with Trench Barrel activated. Due to its bulkiness, having some arc-related mods will help it, but definitely a gun to have nowadays, even if it is a bit situational. You will have to raid to get it, like Anarchy, so maybe not a new player choice. Speaking of Anarchy, it is still great because of its passive damage over time, but again has seen some big nerfs previously, so it did get pushed out of the meta quite a bit, making way for pure damage heavies and Witherhoard. But it is still a great option to take a lot of things out in a custom area or for single target damage. This season, Centrifuge has got a lot of attention due to it being a solid auto all around, causing explosions and blinding with easy to get max overcharge, and can even auto reload while sprinting, because why not? Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's very fun to use and makes me remember the days of Zalo's Supercell a bit, but may struggle a bit with more tankier enemies as it needs a kill to proc its benefits. Definitely something players in the future should consider for an all-around solid primary. Also pairs quite well with arc subclasses. We'll move on to weapons that are in that mid-range. They aren't overly meta-defining and may have once been good, but fell off due to the shifting game. To me, these include Whisper of the Worm, Lawrence Driver, Ace of Spades, Thorn, Lumina, Bad Juju, Jotun, Trespasser, Traveler's Chosen, Symmetry, Grand Overture, Ariana's Vow, Bastion, Ruinous Effigy, Delicate Tomb, and Leviathan's Breath. These are all fun exotics, but can still be good in specific scenarios or builds. Look at Grand Overture and Leviathan's Breath. They've become choices for boss damage due to buffs, but there are still choices that can beat them out. Some of these have also been power crept due to the game changing or other exotics getting buffed. Like Bad Juju, Super Energy is now so easy to gain through damage and orbs. Ariana's Vow got completely replaced by Arbalest, even if Juju and Ariana's are still very good guns. There are also weapons like Delicate Tomb, Ruinous Effigy, or Ace that are just fun to use anywhere or have build potential. You don't hear much of it anymore, but Whisper is here due to the recent sniper buff. It still has some of the best sustained damage in the game, but there are just other better options. I do hope this gets some love one day. It's truly a classic. A lot here depends on what type of weapon you like. Hand cannon, sidearms, specials, take your pick here. Moving to what's not at the very bottom, but good mainly for specific scenarios. Pop up due to some sudden game-breaking thing or build, or are just here because most things are better. We have Tommy's Matchbook, Duality, Cryosthesia, Vergilus Curve, Fourth Horseman, Devil's Ruin, Truth, Polaris Lance, Last Word, Worldline Zero, and Taraba. Mostly similar to the above tier, fun and build potential, but just not as good as what's above. Most of these require a specific setup or subclass to utilize, maybe better on one class than another, or maybe better on the PvP side of the game. These are just okay, nothing too special, but not the worst of the worst. Some like Tommy's matchbook could have been higher, but since you can still forget to look at your health and end yourself, it's still an explosive detriment at times. Worldline could also have been lower, but due to its recent buff, it became a better option, but still beaten by Lament and other weapon types. For the very bottom of the barrel, just to round out your collections, we have Sturm, Mitre Multitool, Rat King, and Manticore. These are just, yeah, they're here. The former three being part of the double primary meta back in year 1. I guess Rat King still sees some usage for meme scenarios, but you could very much live without it, and while Manticore is still relatively recent, being able to gain more damage and damage resistance while airborne is still not the most useful, especially when you're right in the open and can easily be beamed to death. I'd much rather be on solid ground with more ways to dodge and defend from attacks. And that is it for the exotic weapons in PvE. For Legendaries, Salvage's Salvo, Null Composure, Chain of Command, Crime Mutiny, Ecliptic Distaff, Veles X, Adored, and Reckless Endangerment. Salvage's Salvo, old, yes, but still amazing. Literally the non-waveframe of Forbearance. And I think everyone knows how good that is. Explosions, 2 in the mag, Grenade Energy, it's got a great perk selection. Null Composure, also an old one, but in the better rapid fire archetype of fusions. It's immediately good due to its great combo of Feeding Frenzy and Reservoir Burst. Big damage and explosions paired with fast reload, what more could you want? Chain of Command and Crime Mutiny are pretty close, but I'd say Machine Gun beats out Nade Launcher here, because of how good they are still, and it's got a great grenade combo. Crime Mutiny is close behind, with nothing too special, but it's got alright crowd control and extra damage potential, with some nade regen on the side. With the other 4 alright weapons, most just have options that beat them out in perk pools, or they just aren't the best weapon or archetype right now. They're fine for what they are. Decent weapons. Oh, there's also the Point of the Stag bow, which isn't anything special. It's a legendary bow, which are just, existing right now. But if you like bows, then this is a decent one. And there we have it for the PvE side of the game. On to PvP, which will focus more on competitive game modes where choice actually matters. There aren't that many weapons that I would actually consider buying here, since most are PvE focused, heavies which you will not be using 99% of the time, or you have much better access to random legendary drops or your perfect crafted roll, with crafting a roll really not being that difficult. Remember, the meta is constantly shifting. Anyway, weapons I consider to be a solid choice no matter the meta are Ace of Spades, Thorn, Last Word, Outbreak Perfected, Le Monarch, Jotun, Devil's Ruin, and Taraba. Hand cannons have always been a good choice, but when it comes to the test of time and overall consistency across countless metas and engagements, you always hear about Ace. It is just such a solid gun. Very fun and satisfying to use, and still widely used to this day. I use it. I don't think it'll ever fade away or really get touched anymore. Thorn is pretty similar, needing a kill to proc its special effect, but you do need to be a bit more proactive in obtaining means to activate its effect. Tick damage is still very good, and Thorn is a classic from all the way back in D1 days. A good choice all around, and similarly, in the fact that it's a classic, Last Word is here still. It has seen its fair share of nerfs and adjustments, but still to this day it is a fan-firing demon. It is better on controller due to how aim assist works in hipfire, but still a good choice for PC, just not as much. Just beware that it is a different beast to other hand cannons, so you may want to find out a bit more about it before deciding on it. Outbreak is here due to it being a good choice all around. It's not the best of the best, but it's not terrible by any means. There are plenty of legendaries that you can get, however, that can beat this, but those nanites can cause chaos if you're able to create them. Next, we have the long-range tick dealer, Le Monarch. It has always been good, was part of a hot-swapping meta where you hit a shot and swap to clean up, and can make people very mad. A good option for stopping enemies regenning health and preying on anyone bunched up. I will say though, it appears there may be a nerf coming in the coming months, as per an interview with Bungie team members. Then we have Jotun, which for some reason still has insane tracking potential after all these years. It can literally find you in another country, I swear. A good option for pretty easy kills, but just don't fall to the dark side, please. Devil's Ruin is here because of its alternate laser beam firing mode, which can kill it in one beam if you land it all. And sidearms are still alright in PvP. There is also Taraba, which is a monster when proccing its special state, some of the fastest time to kill it in the game. But it does require raid spoil, so this isn't a new player recommendation. I'll also do a quick list of some other fine options for alternate purchases quickly. Mitre Multitool, Rat King, Polaris Lance, Lumina, Bad Juju, Bastion, Symmetry, Witherhoard, Ruinous Effigy, Traveler's Chosen, Duality, Cryosthesia, Lawrence Driver, Trespasser, and Centrifuge, which is pretty hot right now. Some of these are very good. Others are alright, others maybe not so much. They may command a specific playstyle or are a more fun option, but those are some extra choices. Then quickly for the Legendaries, in no particular order, Adored, Null Composure, Velas X, and Reckless Endangerment. These are good PvP options, with the former three being very good specials with solid PvP perk choice. And Reckless is alright, but lightweight shotties aren't the best in the Crucible right now. I guess Point of the Stag can also be here too if you enjoy using bows in PvP, or want something with long range potential that isn't a sniper. But not for me. Right. There is also the always on time Sparrow, which is the fastest Sparrow in the game due to reasons. But it is harder to control due to that speed. There's no real need to get this unless you have nothing else to get. Or you just really want it for some reason. Anyway, there we have it. My personal choices and recommendations for PvE and P. Again, mostly my opinions, but I think some are pretty widely agreed upon. You may want to look around for some gameplay before you decide just to see how the weapon looks and fares better, but other than that, a lot of world legendaries and crafted weapons may be better than those exotics in the lower tier. But in those top tiers, solid choices and very worth, I think anyway. So, if you found this at all helpful or enjoyed this day, dropping a like and or sub would be greatly appreciated and pretty exotic. Also, if you want to learn more about some recent exotic weapon buffs, I do recommend this video because it does go through some of those more potent exotics that got buffed. So check that out. But anyway, take your time to decide. I hope this helped, and I'll talk to y'all later. Happy deciding.